Imagine if a colleague had said to you a few months ago that soon we're no longer going to be coming to work, everything we do is going to be virtual, that the routines, the structures, the support that we have in place to help us manage our home and work lives, that's no longer going to be there and available to us, that schools are going to be closed and we're going to be homeschooling our children. And on top of all of that, we are going to be spending 23 out of 24 hours a day at home with our families. In other words, we're going to be employees, parents, carers, teachers, all at the same time and all from home. I think I've been waiting for a punchline, and I think few of us would have expected that to have become the reality for millions of working parents. What makes this particularly challenging is none of us have been in this situation before. So often we have a roadmap, or we've got collective wisdom or knowledge that we're able to draw on. And at the moment we don't have that. Nobody has tried to navigate this sort of situation before. Nobody knows how we need to be looking after our mental health and well-being during these times. And how we go about balancing and having boundaries around all these different roles we have. So of course this is hard, and of course it's challenging. And whilst unprecedented is a word that's bandied around a lot at the moment, these really are unprecedented times for all of us. So with this as the backdrop, our current reality, I wonder what expectations you have of yourself. And it might be worth spending a minute just reflecting on that. Perhaps you are expecting to be able to work to the same exacting standards that you've always been able to work to. Or perhaps you're expecting to be able to homeschool straight away, even if you've never done this before. Perhaps you're expecting to be able to cope in the same way and have the same levels of resilience, even without those normal support things around you. This is what we're hearing from the parents that we're working with. Unrealistic expectations of themselves and almost trying to be superhuman. And if this is sounding familiar to some of you, and perhaps most of you, don't try and do it all, because we can't. It's unrealistic, it's unhelpful. So think about what you can be doing during this time to be kind to yourself and to look after the well-being of yourself and also the well-being of your family, because nothing is more important than that at the moment. Another thing that we're hearing from the parents we're working with is how at times they're feeling overwhelmed. And again, this is a normal reaction when we think about the times that we're trying to work and parent in. We asked parents what they were feeling at the moment, and it felt like an emotional roller coaster. So the words we heard most frequently were apprehensive, stressed, guilty, exhausted, with some acceptance thrown in. And when we think about how uncertain these times are, how disorientating they can be, it should be no surprise that those are some of the emotions that we're feeling. And it should be no surprise either that sometimes those emotions can bubble over. So when that does happen, when we are feeling a bit overwhelmed, what can we do? And a way of thinking about this is to think about our window of tolerance. And you might not have heard this phrase before, but we all have one. And when we're inside our window of tolerance, what we're able to do is to process what's happening in the moment. We can think and feel at the same time. So if I give an example, imagine I've got my child next to me, I'm on a work call, I'm trying to concentrate, my child's distracting me, and perhaps they're a bit upset, perhaps they're crying. And what I'm able to do in the moment is recognise what's happening, recognise that I've lost my concentration, recognise that I'm becoming a bit more anxious, and decide how I'm going to respond to that. Perhaps drop off that work call, give my child the attention that they need, and then come back onto it. When we're outside of our window of tolerance, we lose the ability to do that, and our emotions can become unmanageable, and we can't think about how we want to respond to a situation. So our survival instincts can kick in, that fight, flight or freeze. We might have an angry or emotional outburst. We might feel panicked. We might feel just that we want to shut down and fatigued. And what we can no longer do is process what's happening in the moment. So if that sounds familiar to you, and if times that might be happening to you, there are things that we can then do to get ourselves back inside our window of tolerance. Some really simple things, and I think most of these are probably going to be familiar to you already. The first is simply breathe. Take time with our breath, and especially take time with our exhale. And what that does is connect us back to our body and connect us back to the present moment. Another thing we can do is ground ourselves. So feel the floor underneath us. If we're sitting down, feel the seat support us and feel the seat behind us. A third thing that we can do is just notice what's around us. Name 5 things that you can see now. Simple things that just get us back into the present moment. So notice what's happened and get us back into the present so we can decide how we want to respond to a situation. So some final thoughts from me on terms of how on earth to do this and homeschool your kids. The first is recognise that we are all trying to muddle through this in our own way, and it is challenging. The second is be kind, be compassionate and have realistic expectations of yourself. And the third is when you do notice that you're outside of your window of tolerance, pause, just take a few moments and bring yourself back into your situation and decide how you want to respond to it. I hope that's helpful. Thank you.